Go ahead, Ted.
Well, welcome to BayChi's monthly meeting. This is our program that happens on every second Tuesday of the month. And I'm looking over the people that have joined this evening. It's an illustrious group. I'm really happy to be together with all of you. There's about 30 of us right now. And today we have an exciting talk by somebody that it seems has talked at BayChi before, but not in 20 years. So that's the Ted Nelson that calls himself a systems humanist. He likes to bring up interesting words in that way. And we're going to talk about HCI constructs as opposed to other things that we could call them then and now. So that'll be fun. It's going to be a little bit of history and a little bit of futurism, we hope. And you got here, which means that you were at the BayChi site probably, although you may have been got into here from some other place, from Facebook or some other places. If you can put in the chat how you got in, we kind of like to keep track of how many people came in whatever way. We are a local chapter of the Association for Computing Machinery. It has lots of things and does lots of things around everything from graphics to machine learning to systems and so on. It has about 75,000 members, big deal. But we have historically been the biggest local chapter of the SIG Chi community. SIG Chi puts on a really great conference every April, usually all over the world, which is kind of 2,000 to 4,000 people. So really, it's the premier place to present your research if you don't know that. And for us, we put this on every month, and when we get together physically, there's some cookies and coffee and so on. But it still does cost us something to keep our website up, to be streaming this, and so on and so forth. So please consider joining us. It's $20 a year, excuse me. And there's a lot of interesting things. For example, in the last month and a half, we've started a Birds of a Feather on careers in HCI. I'm probably going to start a Birds of a Feather that meets once every month or so, talking about supporting people in their legacy goals, talks, writing, research, mentoring, things like that. So that's kind of who we are, and I just want to call you. Yes.
Ted Selker.
Yes. Hello.
Do you have a YouTube window open?
Not that I know of.
I'm hearing the YouTube recording at the same time.
Somebody does then. Somebody else does. I don't. Okay. So Edwin, maybe you opened it. Who opened the YouTube video? Is that maybe Steve?
Not on my end.
All right. Well, I'm not hearing it. I'm sorry. In any case, whoever is hearing more than one thing, please consider closing the second streaming thing. It might be, I don't know who has another streaming version coming in. So in any case, we have some open positions. I call them BayChi experience creators, volunteers. And if people are interested, please send a message to volunteer@baychi.org. And we have probably several years of BayChi talks that haven't been put up as videos. It'd be fun to go through those, edit them, get to see all those talks. That would be one of my favorite things for somebody to help with. There's some other favorite things too. For example, helping Steve Williams, who's been carrying a lot of the load of the electronic BayChi organization, just trying to get it on to make a beautiful experience for working with phones. So that's enough for now about blah, blah. And let's see if I can succeed at getting us to our talk. is this echo problem still an issue for people? I don't see the chat saying it's a big mess right now. Hopefully it's over. Okay, so what we have is Ted Nelson, who, for all of you that don't know, he wrote a book called Computer Lib, and in I don't know, in the 60s, that was very influential, and a lot of people got a lot of enthusiasm going from it. And he's written a few other books, and he's his mother was a famous actress, so he went and got himself a degree in acting too, and I've seen Ted be as theatrical as anyone on the planet, but mostly he's enthusiastic about making things, the whole world connected intellectually, and making ways that people will be incented to publish in a way that really has more or less a lot of relationship to what has happened with hypertext. And so, really, he's credited with as one of the people that brought up hypertext things, after Vannevar Bush and with Engelbart. He is one of the people that really promoted it and had dreams and visions of it, and made other people think about it, and probably caused it to happen. So that's just my own little story from him about Ted. He's a delightful man as well, but that's not what we're here tonight. We're here to learn from Ted's accumulated history. And so I will just start with a table covered with cut and paste images that Ted probably will want to speak on. And you're going to have to unmute, Ted. And then I think it's really the podium's yours.
Okay, great. Well, we don't look. we won't need that slide for a while. Good evening. I'm hoping this works with showing video clips. A lot of what I'm going to say is in my autobiography, Possiflix, which is available on Amazon. I am very honored to address this group and grateful to Ted Selker for inviting me. The last time I talked about this, I think it was about 15 years ago in Scotland. So, CHI, computer-human interaction, is a mistaken term. C should stand for constructs. The computer has no nature, not even hierarchy. What people interact with is the constructs that are enacted. What people interact with is the constructs that are enacted on the computer. A computer is a box that follows a plan, i.e. programs and data. What it manifests are human constructs that people choose to put on. So human construct interaction involves the presentational arts, emphasis, representation, and construct logic, which is the ramifications we create for the constructs. Let's begin by talking about writing. I learned how to write in high school. I wrote a lot of long papers, and I learned that writing is mostly rewriting, and rewriting is mostly rearrangement. Rearrangement used to be called cut and paste, and it involved cutting and pasting. My first salary job was on my hometown newspaper, the New York Times. After my freshman year, I was a copy boy, and my first task in the morning was to fill the paste pots. Now, the paste pot was about 6 inches in diameter of white glass, and it had a black top and a brush sticking straight down from the center of the top, and a tube down the middle for the brush to hold. So in the morning, the paste pot was scaly and scabrous with dried paste. So in the morning, I would scrape out the dry paste and refill it with luminous material from luminous, sensual wet paste from a vat of golden aluminum. I believe three pots went on the city desk, one on the foreign desk, one on the economics desk. I'm not sure. This was over 60 years ago. And then when the reporters would come in, they would write and rewrite and cut their articles in sections and paste the old sections down and write in between till they were done. Then a reporter would yell, "Copy," and I would roll up the story and put it in the pneumatic tube. Boom, it would go up to typesetting. And this was called cut and paste, and indeed it was. Now, my grandmother, who raised me, had a wonderful earlier story of cut and paste. She once went to a lecture by one of Tolstoy's daughters. The great author Tolstoy would dictate a new version to two daughters at the same time. One copy would be set aside for later reference. The other one, he would heavily cut up all over the floor of his Dacha Yasnaya Polyana. And as he went for a walk in the woods, he would cry out, "Don't touch my noodles." And then he would come in and paste them in some new order, adding contents as he went and dictate the next draft. That is what cut and paste meant in the 19th century in Russia and in mid-20th century at the New York Times. Deep rearrangement worked on as a whole. Mr. Selker, now please show the cut and paste slide. Hello, Mr. Ted Selker, Dr. Selker, please show the. So
Yes.
that's a rather bad reproduction of the actual cutting and pasting of my first 1965 ACM article when it was almost all in the right sequence. A photograph of my actual noodles as I was working out the sequence. Thank you for the slide. So what does cut and paste mean today? Those holy words referring to the highest faculties of an author's overview have been assigned to a strange construct called the clipboard, an invisible buffer. You can't see it and it holds only one object. In any other respects, it is like a physical clipboard, except there aren't any other respects. So cut and paste, those formerly sacred words for the mind's highest faculty, have been used to propagandize this abominable construct. These features should have been called hide and plug, but somehow using those familiar old words made it sound okay, like the words National Socialism. So they could at least have made it visible and made it a stack for rearrangement, but oh no. Now this crime against humanity, calling the hide and plug functions cut and paste, was perpetrated by a good friend of mine, the late Larry Tesler. And he kept insisting to me, we had many emails on the subject, that the real cut and paste was only for very specialist long form work, not counting the very short stories that my reporters on the Times would use it for. So we have no decent writing tools, instead of which we have evil construct number one, the abominable clipboard. In my writings, I sometimes still do a full noodle in the Tolstoy sense. I print it out, cut it up, rearrange it, and transfer the new order to the word processor. I should point out that one product called Scrivener has a function for rearranging noodles, but it's too complex for me. My son likes it. And the video editing systems that are available, they have fabulous tools for rearrangement. But text editing is the poor relative with no decent tools. Instead, they gave us fonts to play with. Okay, let me tell my own history. I'll try to make it short. My background is I had lots of initiatives in college. I wrote what I believe is the first rock musical, which Wikipedia does not acknowledge, although the music is on the Internet Archive and the program is on the Internet Archive in the fall of 1957. And I was I took a number of initiatives in new academic fields in college. I was into thitherto unknown academics like Marshall McLuhan. I actually had 2 one-on-one seminars with Zelig Harris, Chomsky's mentor. I made a student film on the basis of which I considered myself a filmmaker. So my big mistake, number one. My father, who was by then a movie director, offered me a career as a Hollywood actor. My first big mistake was not accepting it. With my flamboyance and narcissism, it would have been the right choice. He would have got me an agent and everything, what young hopefuls would kill for. Heaven knows how I would have fared in the Hollywood of my age mates, Jack Nicholson and Warren Beatty. But my acquaintances, Keir DeLay, whom I knew from grade school, George Hamilton, whom I knew from high school, and Steve Gilmore, whom I knew from college, did well. Anyway, I burst out of college wanting to be great, looking for the next big thing. I knew not what it would be, and making for this first big mistake of turning down an acting career, which could have led to directing, which I really wanted. So to graduate school and my epiphany in 1960, my second year in graduate school. I took a computer course. I saw that you could have interactive screens. Interactive screens. I'm a movie maker. I can do that. I declared that the interactive screen would be the new home of the human race. Was I wrong? But I was way early. I believe myself uniquely qualified. I'm a filmmaker. I know exactly what to do with screens. So in that year, 1960, in a fugue of excitement, going mad with ideas, I posited a company to be called General Creative, emphasizing the creative uses of computers. The very posture which was much later adopted by Apple. Mr. Selker, could you please show the General Creative slide? My logo was a sort of egg cradled by a G. I wrote many more cards in this fugue of inspiration. They're on the Internet Archive. I planned to be designer and company head. In other words, I invented Steve Jobs when he was 5, but it was too early and I never found my Wozniak. Now, Mr. Selker, could you please show the coffee house card? In that same fugue of inspiration, I planned to open a coffee house on Harvard Square. The term offering coffee and text editing. The term word processing did not exist then. A fellow graduate student named Graham Gibbard offered to put his inheritance of $10,000 into the project. Thank goodness he didn't. As far as I can tell, Graham Gibbard had a more sensible career as a sociologist. But I kept on designing. I had a meeting with J.C.R. Licklider at MIT. He was the great evangelist of networking, and we excitedly agreed about a lot. Based on his recommendation, they wanted to hire me at IBM corporate headquarters. I forgot this completely till I found their eager letter. I didn't even consider it. I wanted my General Creative company. Okay, I'll skip several years, including work with dolphins, singing with Dave Crosby in Miami, teaching sociology at Vassar. In 1965, I submitted computer papers to 4 conferences. All were accepted. My big presentation at the ACM annual conference got tumultuous applause. I think most of the computer scientists in the world might have been in the room. It was possible then. But I could never have imagined what would happen next. I got a phone call from John W. Kuipers, Director of Information Processing Research for the Central Intelligence Agency. He came to our house in Poughkeepsie. He said they could fund me either through academia or my own company. Naturally, I wanted my own company, General Creative, remember? So in pursuit of this dream, I actually went down to CIA headquarters in Langley with what a frisson to cross that eagle that says, "You shall know the truth and the truth will make you free." But the meeting went bad. It was AI, guys. And in those days, it was AI versus hypertext. In fact, it still is. The CIA strung me along for several years saying I'd get 50K after the next proposal, but after too many proposals, it didn't happen. So I kept designing and looking for help in all directions. In 1974, I created a book that was a bigger success than I knew. Computer Lib, which I pasted together on the kitchen table, sold 50,000 copies, but it didn't make me any money. When I last looked the other day, no copies were on Amazon, 3 on eBay, including the deprecated beige Microsoft version, but not available, but none at Amazon. However, they are available at nullswag.com. Anyway, which is run by my friend James Risberg. Anyway, I didn't know the influence the book was having on the West Coast. The Homebrew Computer Club, run by Lee Felsenstein, treated it as their quote Bible. It inspired Wozniak to design the Apple I. And Steve Jobs said, gee, maybe we could sell a few of these. So they took the Apple I, which was this big board, down to the bike shop on El Camino in Palo Alto, to Paul Jarrell. And he said, okay, I'll take 50. Wham! That was the spark. Jobs and Wozniak started Apple. But I knew none of that. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, I'll skip to the big event. I've been using the trademark Xanadu for years. In the summer of 1979, now I got the dream team to design. For 3 months, we met on my porch in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. The dream team was Roger Gregory, Mark Miller, Stuart Green, Eric Hill, and Roland King. Of course, it had hypertext, but not just jumps. I'll try to show a little video.
Okay, can you share it? There, perfect.
Oh, here it is, the video. This should be the one.
Yeah.
What I called hypertext when I published the idea in 1965 was a deeper concept. Of course, it had jump links like the web. Jump links were a very radical idea at the time, but it also had visible connections, two-way links showing as lines or beams or bridges. And I thought that kind of hypertext would be the new and basic text medium of the human race. I think of the World Wide Web as a fork of the Xanadu project based on a dumb down in the 70s at Brown University that threw out that most important part, visible connection. That important part, visible connection, is now the remaining radical concept of the Xanadu project. Let's just drive it home here. Main idea, visible connection. We need to see connections the kind books used to have. Here are some examples from literature. The Rosetta Stone, that's this white object here, it had 3 different documents: Egyptian hieroglyphic, Egyptian demotic, and Greek. It was a vitally important clue in history. The Hebrew Talmud. The Talmud is a system of comments on the original Hebrew Bible, the Torah, printed visibly next to what's being commented on. There are similar commentary writings connected to many religious documents in Christianity and Islam as well. In the Middle Ages, there were marginal glosses. Here we see a marginal gloss and interlinear glosses, which are part of the document. This is from the Royal Library of Copenhagen, care of Wikipedia. Such annotations were common throughout the Middle Ages.
Okay, my teams and I have created a number of prototypes. You can see them in my video, Xanadu Basics 1A and Xanadu Basics 2. I only have time to show a couple. So let me share screen.
Share screen.
So here are some examples of connected parallel pages you can actually play with. This is the Xanadu space package in various versions showing connections of an essay to its sources and comments. The blue connections are links. The pink connections show the original sources. That was the essay Origins that I'm quite proud of, with links and sources. Now here's a version that's easier to read, except with no links, just the sources showing. This is the same essay without links, but connected to its sources in an interactive web page that you can open and easily step to the sources. It's easy to step to each source.
Okay. Back to the dream team of 1979. This was before there was unified addressing on the internet. We created our own federation scheme, whereby every computer was addressable, every document was addressable, every version was addressable, every character was addressable. The document was to be delivered as a version which contained a listing of its contents and links. It's still a brilliant design. Even though we were working on it, even though we were working in 1979, Roger Gregory thought it would take 9 years to complete. 9 years. So he called it XU88 because it would be ready in 1988. 9 years, what great determination he had. The design was partly based on my invention of the enfilade, which the group generalized and used 3 different ways. At the end of the summer, the design was completed. The rest of us had to take jobs. I edited Creative Computing magazine and became a software designer for Datapoint. But Roger went on working on XU88 until something amazing happened. John Walker, the founder of Autodesk, was impressed by my books and Roger's explanation. And now it was 1987, the year before Roger's due date of 1988. It was then I made my second great mistake. The programmers were complaining about Roger's temper. And instead of asking Roger about his side of it, I joined with John Walker in demoting Roger. I now believe he would have gotten XU88 working that year. So it's my great regret and great mistake number 2, firing Roger or demoting him. Another project was given to the, and there at Autodesk, another project was given the Xanadu name. I had nothing to do with it, and it went on 4 years until the web came out, and it was shut down. If I had supported Roger in finishing XU88, we would have been on the net ahead of the web. The web with its simplicity would have prevailed, but at least our alternative would have been understood and parallel documents might have proliferated. As I've said, parallel texts existed from ancient times to the 20th century, but not on computers. So wrongful construct number 2 after the clipboard, single column texts. Today's text systems do not allow parallelism. One column is all you get. But Chuck Simone, who created Microsoft Word, and John Warnock, who created PDF, have gotten such reward and praise for reducing documents to one column that nobody sees what's missing. They've thrown away half of civilization. Instead, they gave us fonts in that one column, pretty baubles instead of deep structure. So what I've tried to do, I've been prototyping and preaching all these years, but software development on a zero budget with volunteers is hardly profitable. Still, there's a lot to see. With various file designs, my teams have created various demos and prototypes with parallel connections on screens. I recommend my videos called Xanadu Basics 1A and Xanadu Basics 2. And I especially recommend xanadu.com/demo, lowercase. A marvelous job done with Edward Betts in England. To explain, in 1960, Vladimir Nabokov wrote a hypertext novel called Pale Fire with many parallel connections. And in 1966, I contacted the publishers of Pale Fire and got permission to use it in a demo of a hypertext system I was consulting. Over 50 years later, with my colleague Edward Betts in England, we created a demo of Pale Fire with wonderful visible connections you can click on and off. Go to xanadu.com/demo. The file formats haven't gone anywhere. Maybe an addressable link format could have traction, but I don't have time to keep up on this. No existing companies seem to be interested, and the web is run by the W3C committee. Who am I to try to barge on the WC3 committee and say you're all doing it wrong? Just because I was here first? Yeah, right, they'd say. You're out of order. And the last time I talked to Bill Gates backstage in Japan, he was speaking after me. And as I got off stage, he said, I get it. Xanadu is a server. He didn't have time for me to correct him. But supposedly when Bill Gates saw the web, he said, quote, it seems Ted Nelson was right about everything. I tried to get that in writing from the guy who told me, but obviously sending it to me in writing would have been company disloyalty. Okay, now for my third big mistake. If you happen to have watched my 1990 TED2 talk on YouTube, I postulate a combination of spreadsheet and database. But in 1990, when I did the TED2 talk, I hadn't figured it out. Well, I actually designed it. It's a system of Lego blocks in n dimensions. Each block has a positive and negative end in each dimension, and you can connect them into remarkable structure. When I first met Marlene, my companion for 23 years, I told her this idea and she dreamt about it and loved it. But it wasn't until 2001, 9 years later, that this structure came to fruition, built into a marvelous interactive system that combines spreadsheet, database, and visualization. It was done by a wonderful team of volunteers in Finland at the University of Jyväskylä under the direction of Tuomas J. Lukka. We worked together closely and they did a perfect job of everything I asked for. Lukka's article explaining the system is still on the web. I call this hypertext structure with the trademark zigzag. You can download it. There are a number of demos on YouTube and you can download it at xanadu.com/zigzag. Adam Moore of the University of Nottingham populated it with data, British kings and queens, and that became the basic demo you can watch on YouTube. And then this same Adam Moore used it to demonstrate chemical structures. I'll show you a snippet of Adam's chemical structures. Remember, these are Lego blocks in multiple dimensions set up by Adam Moore. Here we go.
Share.
Share screen.
And let's just switch the view to something which chemists are slightly more familiar with. So we'll just walk through here. So we've got, there we go, our atoms are circles connected with lines. And let's just change the view here. So we have stretch transition. Now, for all you chemists out here, we're just simply representing covalent bonds.
So, so you can watch more of that on YouTube. And it's a marvelous demo. So that brings me to my great mistake number 3, the only act in my career that I'm truly ashamed. And what a mistake it was. I got a patent on zigzag in the USA, and I thought the money would come pouring in. So I told my Finnish team that their version couldn't be distributed in the USA because it violated the patent. As background, I had made a lot of money on another patent, and I thought this would do the same. This was extremely stupid. I betrayed the team I had worked with, lost those friends, and lost whatever impetus that great piece of software might have gotten. Lucas' team was rightly bitter, and it killed the great chances that Zigzag might have had, perhaps as cult software, if I had simply granted the group a license for the patent. It very well might have become a niche. There are a few cultists. I have one friend who uses it for everything, but it has no traction. So that's my story. I think I've said enough. Thank you very much.
So that's fabulous. You've said, you've begun our conversation. I would like anybody that wants to put on their yeah, I'm unmuted. Can people hear me? And please put forward some questions in the chat area, and I'll try to be aware of them. Yeah, I see some people clapping, and we really appreciate this beautiful talk, Ted, and a beautiful story. And I guess I want to ask you to begin with, there's this whole field of facilitated computer facilitated talks. Fred Lakin made a system called VMAX for doing that, and it's kind of a performance oriented, linking ideas together visually. I don't know if you're aware of that and what you think of that whole shtick.
Don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Basically, I use a text file and slides. I've done it various ways over the years. It's
yeah. Another area that I kind of want that thinks a little bit related to some of your ideas maybe and maybe, you know, took them from you too, is HyperCard. I mean, have you ever seen, some people make quite impressive connected relationships and using information and graphics in HyperCard or even in Flash sometimes. I don't know if you have any comments on those kind of tools.
When I first saw HyperCard, I couldn't understand it because it was word processing and database and interaction. And the idea of melding those into a single unit confused me. But my friend Roger Wagner has made another version, a superset of that. I think it's called SuperCard. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a programming system.
Yeah. So Nathan Sherdoff has a question for you. And I want to see, can we give you your microphone, turn it on, and let you present? I'm Nancy, can you help me with this? I don't seem to be able to know how to do that quite.
There, I just turned it on.
Great, thank you very much.
Hi, Ted. My name's Nathan. I was in the audience actually when you were presenting at TED 2 way back when.
Wow.
And when you were setting up your computer and hooking it to the monitor for a brief moment, I got to see your desktop, and I had never seen anything like that before, because it appeared that the entire thing was covered with directories with little sort of sentence fragments. And it looked like you were using Max Finder as a hypertext word processing tool. And I've always wondered if that was in fact what you were doing. And if so, do you still do that, or do you use a different tool these days?
The tool I use is scissors and a stapler in the out-C position. You know, a stapler anvil can either clench the staple inward or outward. So the outer ones you can pull out easily. I've never found a writing tool of any use for it.
Okay.
Okay, so now Nicole Lazaro, you have a question. Could you unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Wonderful, inspiring talk, Ted. I remember hearing you decades ago and getting an autographed copy of one of your books, run off the Xerox copier. So it was awesome. Yeah, I was curious about what you thought about mind mapping software such as, the brain.com. How might that relate to your work on hypertext? Sort of.
I've looked at it and fiddled with it and didn't find any use for it. Hypertext I see as an extension of literature, especially parallel hypertext side by side. But mind mapping doesn't create. Okay, a document is a package of information with a point of view, and it has to be portable. It has to be sendable to somebody else, and mind maps don't seem to fill the bill.
It's a very interesting observation. It sounds like a mind mapping software like the brain.com, it's really a collection of fairly short memes, fairly short ideas, where your vision is more constructs of ideas put together.
Well, writing is constructs of ideas put together. That's
exactly, yeah. Yeah, so the mind map in terms of like the brain.com might be just a little bit too atomized in a way. I love that distinction. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And Aaron Marcus has a comment that he would like to make, or a question he'd like to ask.
Thank you, Ted, for a wonderful, can you hear me?
Yes.
And indeed, you used to carry a puppet around, as I recall.
It's upstairs. Let's see, I almost got sidetracked from what I was going to ask you about. Oh, I know. When I was consulting with MCC in Austin, Texas, in 1985 to 90, the cognitive engineering people were trying to find ways to visualize thought processes. It seemed to me when I saw your image of the Lego blocks in 3D in n dimension, some of those images seem to look like what they were visualizing in 3D display devices. And I wondered if you ever had contact with any of the people at MCC and had a chance to see what they were doing.
Well, Eric Gullickson, when he was there, I think it was in
85 or something?
so it was in the 80s because I was in San Antonio.
Yes, I remember.
And he had me speak at MCC, but I don't remember.
I see. All right.
I don't remember seeing anything. The issue about document structure is it has to be something that can be sent to another person, and it has to express a point of view. A person has to make it because it has overview or it doesn't. It can be badly written or well written. The term through line I only learned in recent years, but in through line writing, you start with a zinger and end by coming back to that zinger. And that's how many New Yorker type articles are written.
Yes, and okay, so let's see. I think we have Ron Lickey has some, maybe has a zinger for us. Do you have a question you want to ask?
I'm not here, but I see Mike Worth has his hand up.
But Ron is here, and can you?
Ron Lichty.
Yeah, hi. Can you say something there?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I see Mike Worth has his hand
Okay.
up.
Hand up for Mike Worth. Mike, please ask a question. Mike, are you here?
His mic is still off.
Yes. I've asked him to unmute.
I will mute myself.
Okay,
Well-
well, Mike, when you get to it, we can get back to you. We'll start with, how about Brandel Zacharnak?
Yeah, thank you, Ted. This has been very exciting to hear. I'm curious about your take on Scrivener and the failings that you sort of have observed with it. Are they to do with the fact that it's sort of fairly opinionated about fiction writing, that it's unapproachable for what you would like to do with it, or there are other aspects of it? It strikes me that hypertext authoring is a valuable thing, but it may be challenging to get it simple enough to be relevant for most people's use cases.
I wasn't aware that you could write hypertext in Scrivener. Basically, I was simply daunted by its complexity. I'm lazy and not eager to spend hours delving into the complexities of a particular piece of software.
Sure. So I just want to mention. Can you mention your most recent book, Possiplex? Maybe say just a word about
That's
it.
not my most recent book.
Excuse me. Could you tell us about some of the other books you've written?
Well, the Scene Machine simply described a crazy hybrid computer I designed, whose intention was to create Pixar-style movies. And of course, I had visited the Pixar team, but anyway, I was trying to do it on my own, and I had to. And again, it was something I shouldn't have bothered with. That's called the Scene Machine. My book Media 72 was an enumeration in 1967 from my boss at Harcourt Brace of all the strange media innovations that might be useful 5 years thence. Of course, I was pushing computer hypertext. My book Possiplex is an autobiography, and one of its interesting features is that the separate threads are teased out in different fonts. I like fonts as much as the next person, but I'm sorry about what they've stuck us with single column text. My book Philosophy of Hypertext is essentially my PhD thesis from Keio University based upon my philosophy of general schematics as first enunciated in middle of 1957, I believe. So those are some of my books.
Okay, well, good. I think Mike Worth is ready to ask his question at this point. Let's see if that.
Wow. The books are available from lulu.com, if not from Amazon.
Thank you, Ted. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Very good. So 2 quick anecdotes about Ted. I first met him in about 1975 at a SIGGRAPH meeting at the University of Colorado, which may in fact have been the first SIGGRAPH.
It was.
And he was running up and down the stairs of a highly pitched chemistry auditorium selling his book, and I managed to grab one.
No, I wasn't selling the book. The book did not exist. I was handing out a broadside of sample pages.
Well, whatever. I hung on to it dearly and subsequently lost it in an office booth. More recently, back in about early 2000s, Ted, you and I met at IBM Almaden, and we discussed how Lotus Notes is structured internally.
Yep.
Because we were talking about that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But the main observation here, which I'd like you to comment on, is that I believe connections or links are more important than the raw data endpoint sometimes. So for example, spies sometimes get more out of traffic analysis than they do decrypting the raw data. And also these connections can often be more fluid than the endpoint data, particularly now in the age of the internet. And would love to talk to you more about that, but I'd like to hear your quick comments now.
Links.
I've always said that connections are important. That's the most I was able to get out of what you said.
Okay, well, I think it stands on its own. It was an interesting comment. And so Suresh Joshi has a comment.
Hey, it's Suyash. Hey,
Yes.
nice to hear from you, Ted. Although I'm very little familiar with a lot of the things that were mentioned today, but I did catch some, like the diagram you made with the lines connecting two things and things you were showing. I was thinking, like, I was talking to a friend about how awesome would it be if there was a tool that could show computer code, but explain how one class connects to other class, and in the whole big program, because a lot of times you have to read through and understand the constructs of what this is doing, and then it's calling something else and something else. But there is no tool that kind of visualizes in an intuitive way. What are your thoughts on applying your idea to understanding computer code?
My answer is I don't know. Certainly, automatic understanding of computer code is hard. That's why documentation of computer programs used to be so important, and probably still is. And that's by the author actually putting it into words.
Suresh, Interlisp D with loops was a programming environment that made nodes for all the different objects and embedded all of the code inside of those nodes and used structure editors. And it literally changed the style of programming for the people that used it. Smalltalk also had a visual metaphor for its tools that changed the way people wrote their code. They made much deeper code. Anyway, more balanced code in loops. There's a whole field of people using visualization. Mike Travers on our talk has been involved with this as well. It's a very, very important topic you just brought up, and it's a field, so it's an interesting field too. And there was another question by Nicole Lazaro. I don't know if I got your name right, but do you want to make another please?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's Lazaro.
Lazaro.
It's Lazaro.
Yeah,
Lazaro.
everyone's name.
It's sort of Italian. Maybe I am a little bit. Yeah, so I was curious about, and I've always been struck, I've seen you speak a number of times about about the genesis of the hypertext idea. And I was curious about how that might relate to perhaps the way that you think, or that you, create constructs of different ideas together. I know for me, when one of my challenges is often I'll have, 3 ideas in my head at the same time, and then I have a serial port, which is a mouth, or hands, which is typing, and I can't get all 3 ideas out. So hypertext is kind of an interesting kind of not way around that, if you will. But I was curious, does it reflect at all about your inner workings, like how you think, how you create?
I don't know. It seemed an obvious idea to me when I published it in 1965.
Yeah. This is the Life magazine article by Vannevar Bush that
It's pronounced Van Nevar, by the way.
Okay, yeah. And I think it was part of your inspiration too, wasn't it, Ted?
Probably.
Yeah, so this is kind of, I happen to have an original copy of it.
Wow.
Do you want to share your screen?
Oh.
I mean, holding it up, doesn't mean that we get to see it.
You can't see my video?
Well, depending on which view I've chosen.
Yeah, it's
Well, your choice.
I can see it now. Yes, now I can see it.
And I'll just show you once more. Let's see if I can get to it.
It was
There's a
first
lot
published in
of
the Atlantic Monthly.
It's quite a piece. This is one of my prized possessions, of course. Let me see. So there is the first page of the article. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of neither here nor there, but I thought people would like to see. There's this version. The Atlantic version does not have these beautiful pictures that the Life magazine version has, showing a library that you talk to. So here's the library you talk to, and so on. So anyway, that's just kind of related. I think it's really taken a lot farther in hypertext that people like Ted Nelson have invented. So, okay, now.
I don't think I invented it. I thought it was obvious and just needed a name.
Yeah. Here's a really kind of fun picture showing documents coming. It kind of relates to this cut and paste business where the documents are inside the computer and then they come out.
Inside the mimics.
Yeah, that's what I'm showing you. Yep.
But it's not a computer.
Oh, well. So I think that this has really been fabulous. I want to give people another chance to say whatever they'd like to or ask another question.
Mike Travers has his hand up.
Oh, Mike, please.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Ted. So yeah, I've also known Ted since about 1975 when I was a high school student in Evanston, Illinois, and I helped him open what was supposed to be the first retail computer store, the Itty Bitty Machine Company.
First one in the Chicagoland area, but I think somebody else was ahead of us.
But my question, I have another question is for you, Ted, about the last few years there's been kind of an explosion of hypertext writing tools, none of which are that great in themselves, but the fact that there's multiple startups and lots of people exploring this space that's kind of a new thing. I wonder, and Rome Research is probably the best known of these. I wondered if you'd had a chance to look at any of these and have any opinion about that, or this little.
I haven't heard about any of these, but I'm not really, I have a lot of day-to-day obligations here.
Yeah. Michael, would you like to just give a little list of them or say one or two things about them?
I'll put some in the chat.
Thank you very much. It'd be very appreciated.
Good to see you, Michael.
And yeah, so I'm going to put back up the my screen and share that. And I think I've got it shared now. So this has been a wonderful talk by Ted Nelson, and we're going to videotape it. Please tell people to come to bakehigh.org to look at it. We're very proud of having you here tonight, Ted. And these kind of videos are, I hope, what people come to expect of Bake High. I think that with that,
I think you're also going to publish, aren't you, the directions for the two that I put up. I sent you the directions for
where to find the videos and
Yeah.
and your swag stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can tack that onto your talk.
And the calendar entry will include it. Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, that'll be fine. So with that, I want to conclude tonight's formal presentation. And if anybody wants to stay around for a few more minutes and chat up at the podium as we do in person, that's great. Relative to the podiums, we are not actually able to reconvene at Xerox Park for a while. And so we get to enjoy having talks like Ted Nelson's, where he's in Connecticut at the moment, giving this talk. We've had talks with people giving them from
East Coast, but not Connecticut.
Connecticut, okay, I'm sorry, New Jersey, excuse me. I got these beautiful places mixed up. So we are really, enjoying this time where we get to have people talk from a variety of places in the world. And I also appreciate you guys joining from various places in the world. So I think that concludes our formal talk this evening.
I'm going to stop the recording.
And to save it, how can we save the chat?
The chat gets saved automatically.
To where?
In Zoom with the rest of this recording, and when we post produce, you can see the chat synchronized with the rest of the talk.
And Ted, if you want to save it, or anyone else, there's a ... in the lower right of your screen, right above in the chat window. Just click on the ... and it says save chat. That'll save the text file to your computer right now.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I set mine up to save, and I don't even know, that I've saved all those.
Yeah, I don't actually see that in the more button, but anyway, I think that Nancy.
But you're logged in a different way.
I've lost my power. All right, I'm going to stop sharing at this point, and I'm going to, I think that it's time for us to end this evening, and it's really great to see all of you guys.
I have a
farewell,
question.
everybody.
Hold on, Ted.
Is there a way I can contact you or to be able to send something your way? I have a couple of things that I'd love to run past you in the form of a specialized text editor that makes use of real cut, copy, paste, and a Wikipedia, again, spatial, that makes use of parallel visible links. That may be of interest to you.
Ted,
I don't like to give out my email address.
Okay.
I understand.
Brandon, you can email to chair@bakehigh.org, and I will forward your information to Ted.
Thank you.
chair@bakehigh.org.
Yes, thank you.
It's a really interesting point, is that hypertext adds a spatial element to concepts and constructs. I do a lot of work in spatial audio, or have been recently. And the spatialization of information is another really great thread. Thank you very much, Ted. Great seeing you, Nancy and Aaron.
Hey.
Yeah, been a long time. Take care, everyone.
No, it's great to see you too. Thanks for your questions. Yeah, and I think that visualizing information is with audio and visual has been a long and wonderful area. And I think we're finally getting to the point where, some of that, it comes and goes as fads, outliners, and so on. But I think I agree with Mike that might be a moment coming where we can really get some great things.
it's a very interesting, because I've been through so many different ways, as we all have, so many different ways of, okay, we're going to make this information 3D, you know, so it's going to be the web and it's going to be 3D, it's going to be this in 3D. And it's like, you know, how useful that is, how can we navigate it very well. But yeah, I agree. We might be coming up with something that.
Yeah, we're only at
more
the fifth time that people have tried to make augmented reality, you know, with where you can actually walk around in these spaces.
Yeah, I just got the new spectacles, the new Snap ones.
Oh.
So these are the Magic Leap ones type. Yeah, and yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Ubiquitous computing is finally going to actually happen.
Yeah. So yes, I spent 3 years at Magic Leap. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So great seeing everyone.
Yeah.
Well, good night. And it's
Okay.
what people don't know is that Ted Nelson and I spent a harrowing week with him getting his internet upgraded yesterday, and then it collapsing completely. And then this afternoon he got it. They had to have a truck roll to come out and fix it up so that he had the internet, the great internet that worked out beautifully tonight. So thank you, Ted, for doing that upgrade.
Pushing on that. Yeah, really.
All right. So hopefully Ted will come out and visit in the Bay Area. And when he does, I'm happy to host him here, and we'll have people get together. Okay.
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 Thanks, everybody. I'll go now.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Thanks for